Hello friends, this is League on Lock. Eric and Mark with you guys today, previewing some of the teams for the LCK in 2019. I imagine we'll be seeing very different rosters, along with two entirely new teams in the league. We've already talked about Gen G and their disappointment at Worlds. We're moving on to the second seed at Worlds from the LCK, the Afreeca Freaks. And first things first, Mark, how disappointing were they actually at Worlds? Were they that disappointing? Because Kiin did turn it on towards the end of the competition, and despite his very best 1v9 efforts, they get 3-0'd by Cloud9. So compared to Gen G, obviously not as disappointing, right?
It's hard to say exactly, right? Because when you're looking at Gen G and the disappointment that you had there with that roster was obviously just the disappointment of wanting to see them do well, knowing that they had smashed in the gauntlet here to earn that last spot for the LCK over the likes of Faker and SKT, members like that, earning that spot, and the disappointment was not having them find any success as the defending champions. But on the other side with the Afreeca Freaks, you had seen them find the success that they hadn't ever found before in the regular split seasons in the LCK, and that expecting them to carry that towards the Worlds here was really what everyone was hoping to see. And then I think quickly though, expectations were dashed as people noticed that the meta was moving to a much more aggressive early game style, and as everybody has known from watching the Afreeca Freaks, that is certainly not how they found success in their games.
Yeah, and early on in the group stage, they just looked all out of sorts. Everyone was underperforming. Kiin stepped it up, as I said, but those first two games against Cloud9, they looked totally lost and got completely outclassed. So still a disappointing performance for them, but we've still got to acknowledge they had a pretty solid 2018 overall. And what's interesting about their roster going into 2019 is that all the subs, they're one of the only two teams with SKT that actually have a 10-man roster that they run. We saw Mowgli and Aiming quite a bit throughout the regular season. All their starters, save for Kiin, who has a contract till 2019. The other four are all done in a couple of weeks, but the subs stay for a little bit. So I'm expecting Mowgli and Aiming to jump into that starting spot next split.
And I think that would be the correct assumption here when you look at Afreeca Freaks and the performances that you've gotten from these subs in the past. Spirit, yes, has stepped up his performance this year specifically, but when you've been watching the Afreeca Freaks for the last year or so, you have been in the back of your mind thinking that Mowgli is the one that allows them to be more proactive on the map, make more of these aggressive plays, shed this ability where you need to be scaling up so much. It was the difference that Mowgli could provide. And you could see that occasionally here at this Worlds. Sometimes Mowgli would step in and give them that kick in the pants that they needed, but it just wasn't enough for them this year. I would like to see him moving forward. And yes, Aiming in the bot lane, I think does provide you a little bit more carry potential than Kramer has shown us so far.
And it was interesting that Kramer actually kind of played towards the end of the playoff run for Afreeca, because during the regular season, it was pretty much Aiming. He was playing 80-90% of all the games, and then they felt during that playoff run, and they only brought Kramer for Worlds because you're only allowed that one sub. So that change was a little bit surprising to me.
Certainly a surprising change for me here. And then I think when you're looking at where else they're saved, obviously, with this roster, of course, having Kiin locked up for another year is a great thing for the Afreeca Freaks. Keep building on through him and that strength that he does provide in the top lane. You saw it here, even with some uncharacteristically poor performances for the rest of the Afreeca Freaks here at Worlds. Kiin was able to step up towards the end when it mattered, when he really needed to try and find something for his team. He was able to bring up some of these big performances.
And despite that disappointment, their exit at Worlds in quarterfinals, I mean, these guys were in the grand finals of the LCK in spring, lost to King Zone, and they were so close in a game 5 against Griffin, where Chovy landed that incredible Orianna ultimate to win that. So they finished second and third, respectively, in that year. So they definitely deserving of their spot at Worlds. And then, you know, people will say they're not as deserving after getting smashed by Cloud9, but overall, they still had a pretty solid 2018. And this is a team that's almost always under the radar because they don't necessarily have the star power of some of the other squads in the LCK.
And I think the hate that they do get for their underperformance and loss to Cloud9 is a little misplaced, because I think that Cloud9 does deserve some praise for their performance and how they prepared against the Afreeca Freaks to get that dominating 3-0. But I think that there are certainly some issues and some small mistakes that the Afreeca Freaks made in that series that overshadow it, and I'm specifically talking about Kramer and hitting the Baron. You got to hit the Baron, buddy, because if you did that, that kind of secures it for you a little bit more than just dumping in auto as attacks into Ornn.
Also, Spirit, you got to smite before you die. You're going to die. Stay alive with the smite. Use it to live at the very least. But obviously, even if they win that game, I mean, Afreeca is probably still going to come away with that series. But that was the only game where they actually looked like they had anything positive going for them in that match. But Cloud9 was the better team on that day, and I expect some serious, substantial changes for Afreeca in 2019, because one of the guys that really underperformed at Worlds as a whole that we haven't talked about as much is Tucson in that bottom lane. He was the key playmaker throughout entirety of 2018 for Afreeca, and we just didn't see it at Worlds.
Which is very surprising, because coming into this Worlds, we had been talking about a lot about the support position, and specifically guys like Tucson that have that playmaking ability to completely change around games and lead your teams into certain fights by nailing the perfect engage. And we didn't see that ever, not even once or twice, ever from Tucson at this Worlds, which was really a disappointment for myself and the Korean fans who were really hoping to see something special from the 2 seed with the Afreeca Freaks. And a large part of that was going to be having Tucson manage to land these engages, and it just never happened.
And Tucson narrowly avoided getting into a top 20 list. So you thought he would avoid that curse, but apparently he was still cursed at Worlds 2018. The guy to keep on Afreeca, you already talked about him a bit. It doesn't matter what the other 4 are. Hang on to Kiin. I know SKT Kiin was kind of a thing, and we kind of memed about it a little bit. It'd be great to see him play alongside Faker, but if you're Afreeca, you do everything in your power to keep this guy on your roster. The development and evolution that we've seen from him starting in spring, where he's playing Lucian top, 1v1ing Smeb, and you're like, okay, this guy's actually pretty good. He's got some talent, no doubt. And then a total coming out party in summer, and deserving of that spot on the Asian Games squad.
Very much so deserving to have that spot, and really has had these performances that you've been wanting to see from these Korean top laners, and really nice to see him emerge, because watching Kiin before when he was on Jin Air was not nearly the same as watching him now. He certainly has hit that next level of performance, and practice has worked off for him to get to this level of where he has the mastery on the champions that he needs to have, and he's able to break out things that are a little bit creative at the time, like a Victor answer to an Aatrox top lane, and find a way to dish out some major damage.
Yeah, even though Cloud9 3-0'd that series, I think that Victor pick tilted Licorice off the face of the earth, and then when he went up against it again, against Whippo, well, it was just a tragic ending for NA fans like Mark, who was in the crowd and had to watch that go down.
Hey, it was okay, because it meant that a Western team was making it into finals. A little bit more disappointing seeing G2 get absolutely smashed by IG the day before.
There was a whole lot of smashing going on in the last few sets at Worlds 2018. But for Afreeca, hold on to Kiin for 2019, and you expect to see some of the subs get a promotion. Not even really a promotion, because Mowgli and Aiming were getting a lot of games in the regular season, and I think Afreeca was already gearing towards that swap for Spirit and Kramer, and 2019, it's just going to be more of that, I think.
Yep, time to turn over the keys to the subs here. Give me Mowgli, give me Aiming. That is the team that Afreeca Freaks need to be moving forward with.
And Spirit might be a free agent coming forward. Definitely expect him to find a spot. He's been on a whole lot of teams throughout his career. He has had quite a storied career for a jungler, and people kind of forget about him, but he is still a solid jungler.